Chapter 1. The Bookstore Encounter. I should have known better than to step foot into the bookstore, especially on my day off. The second I walked through the door, it felt like Christmas had reached out with its garish tinsel hands and slapped me across the face. Every corner was drowning in garlands, twinkle lights, and those infernal nutcrackers that looked like they were plotting something sinister. I swear, even the bookshelves smelled like cinnamon and cloves. Normally, I could tolerate it. I worked here, after all, and putting up with this holiday explosion was part of the job. But today was supposed to be my day, a break from all of this merry madness. Yet here I was, back in the thick of it, questioning every life decision that had led me to this moment. I tightened my scarf and muttered under my breath, "Ridiculous." The place was packed, naturally. It's like this village has a rule. If it's December, you have to pretend you love the holidays more than life itself. People bustled around, humming along to the old-school Christmas music that warbled from hidden speakers. I tried not to make eye contact with anyone, which is harder than it sounds when everyone seems hell-bent on radiating seasonal cheer. I ducked behind a shelf labeled Holiday Favorites, which I avoided like it was radioactive, and headed to the general fiction section. My sister Emma had been hounding me for weeks about picking her up something for Christmas. "Just a nice book, Elliot. Nothing fancy. You live in the cutest little village. I'm sure you'll find something charming." Yeah, charming wasn't exactly in my wheelhouse. I scanned the shelves half-heartedly, fingers brushing over the spines. Nothing jumped out at me, and honestly, I didn't care enough to try harder. Maybe I'd just grab some bestseller and call it a day. That's when it happened. Out of nowhere, someone bumped into me, hard enough to knock the book I was holding out of my hands, and into a precariously stacked pyramid of paperbacks. The whole thing toppled over in an avalanche of novels. "Crap, I'm so sorry." I turned ready to glare the offender into oblivion, but I froze instead. The guy looked like he'd stepped out of a Hallmark movie. Messy dark blonde hair peeking out from under a knit beanie, a face that seemed to be perpetually halfway to a smile, and a plaid scarf slung artfully around his neck. He held a camera in one hand, the kind real photographers use, not those pocket-sized things. His other hand was already reaching to help pick up the mess. "Seriously, my bad," he said, flashing me a grin that was so effortlessly warm, it made me feel even grumpier. "It's fine," I mumbled, crouching down to grab a paperback. "No, really, I wasn't paying attention. These little shops are so distracting this time of year." He nodded toward the explosion of Christmas paraphernalia like it was a compliment. "Yeah, distracting," I said, hoping he'd take the hint and leave me alone, but he didn't. He picked up a copy of A Christmas Carol and held it up with a laugh. "Oh, man, this is a classic. My mom used to read it to us every year. You can't go wrong with Dickens, right?" I stared at him, unsure if he was actually trying to recommend a book or just making small talk. Either way, I wasn't interested. "Not my thing." He quirked an eyebrow, clearly amused by my lack of enthusiasm. "Not a fan of Christmas, huh?" I sighed, standing up and shoving the books back onto the shelf. "Not really." "That's too bad," he said, like it genuinely mattered to him. He dusted off his hands, then gestured to his camera. "I'm Logan, by the way, photographer. I'm here shooting a piece on small-town holiday traditions." "You from around here?" "Unfortunately," I muttered. Logan chuckled. "You're a tough nut to crack, huh? Let me guess. You're one of those bah humbug types who secretly loves the holidays but refuses to admit it." I gave him a flat look. Nope. He didn't seem fazed. In fact, he seemed intrigued. "Well, maybe you just need the right book to get you in the spirit. Here." He reached over and plucked a novel from the shelf, handing it to me with a flourish. "The Ghost Child." "Give it a shot," he said, his voice warm and insistent. "It's got winter vibes, but it's not in-your-face Christmas. Might be your speed." I took the book reluctantly, mostly to get him to leave me alone. "Thanks." "Anytime," he said, stepping back with a grin. "Oh, and..." He patted his jacket pocket, like he was looking for something, then pulled out a small photograph. "I think I was holding this when I bumped into you. It's not mine anymore. Consider it my apology for ruining your day." He handed me the photo, a glossy square that felt almost too personal to accept. It was a black and white shot of the village blanketed in snow. The church steeple rose in the distance, framed by bare trees, and the whole scene had a stillness to it that felt peaceful. Before I could say anything, Logan gave me a little wave and disappeared into the crowd, his camera slung over his shoulder. Back at my apartment, I tossed my coat over a chair and set the book on the table, fully intending to ignore it until Emma guilted me into mailing her a present. But the photo Logan had given me, that was another story. I couldn't stop looking at it. I'd lived in this village for years, but somehow, Logan's shot made it look different. Better. The snow was softer, the light gentler, the place warmer somehow. I propped the photo up on the windowsill, where the light from the street lamp outside could catch the edges. Ridiculous, I muttered again, but this time it sounded less convincing. Before I could say anything, Logan gave me a little wave and disappeared into the crowd, his camera slung over his shoulder. Back at my apartment, I tossed my coat over a chair and set the book on the table, fully intending to ignore it until Emma guilted me into mailing her a present. But the photo Logan had given me, that was another story. I couldn't stop looking at it. I'd lived in this village for years, but somehow, Logan's shot made it look different. Better. The snow was softer, the light gentler, the place warmer somehow. I propped the photo up on the windowsill, where the light from the street lamp outside could catch the edges. Ridiculous, I muttered again, but this time it sounded less convincing.